There's Heidi.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Heidi.
Hey, Heidi.
Hello, Heidi.
Yeah, there we go. We've got all sorts of folks here. All right, and let's see. It looks like we're recording. It's 4:31, so I will call to order the June 2nd regular meeting of the Personnel Commission. Secretary, would you kindly call the roll?
Of course, Chairperson. Chairperson Goldstein.
Present.
Vice Chairperson Zenner Davis.
Here.
And Commissioner Roeder.
Here.
All present, Chairperson.
Thank you. We'll move on to item 3, which is our public comment segment. And it looks like we have visitors to the meeting today. So I'll ask that if anyone is interested in making a public comment, typically we limit it to 15 minutes total. And we'll see how many folks are interested in making a comment, and then we can know if there are any further limitations. Is there anyone else who's interested in, I see Kay with a hand up. I thought I saw others, but okay. It looks like Mark Ramia changed his mind. Kay, why don't you, oh, nope. All right, Mark Ramia is back. Okay, why don't we say a 3 to 5 minute limit? It looks like there are only 2 folks. And Kay, we'll go ahead and get started with you.
All right. Wonderful. Hello, everyone. My name is Kate Kohler. I'm an educational interpreter for the deaf and hard of hearing. I'm located at Berkeley High School. I had several concerns I wanted to bring before the Personnel Commission. Firstly, I would like to have a conversation on the job description about whether an interpreter for the deaf is qualified and or certified to have a job. When I was hired for this position, I was told that all I needed was a 4.0 and on the EIPA, or I needed national certification. However, in February, I was sent from my school site position at the high school. I was sent to Willard Middle School because I was deemed unqualified to interpret a psychological evaluation for a student. So I think the Personnel Commission needs to maybe put something in the job description of the interpreter where they're delineating between EIPA endorsed interpreters and nationally certified interpreters who are on the registry of interpreters for the deaf. So when I went to go to Willard Middle School to interpret for a student, another interpreter who does not work for the school district and is an agency contract, she was brought to the high school. So I feel that Berkeley Unified needs to offer professional development if they're now arguing that they need a nationally certified interpreter for the district. I would argue that they should grow the interpreters that they already have within the school district and let one of us achieve national certification so that we remain a merits-based system and not just hiring out to agency interpreters. The second thing I would like to bring up, I would like to know why at the middle school, team interpreting is the norm and it is not the norm at the high school. Middle school and high school have similar demands upon the interpreter. Every day when we do not team, we risk carpal tunnel and other health issues. It also is best practices to include a team interpreter because then when an individual needs to go for a break, the student's IEP minutes are not lost. What's happening now is there is not staffing at the high school to give me or the other interpreter our breaks. So when we leave to take a break, a student is without an interpreter. That is why I feel that team interpreting needs to be added to the job description and that interpreters in the district need to be given adequate professional development so that we can do the best for an equitable message interpretation for our students. I would also like to put that a new student has joined the school district and I was told that she needed pure ASL. I am not certified in pure ASL. When I applied for this job and when my certifications were being reviewed, that was very clear. I clearly stated that I know PSE and ASL. That is what I'm certified in. When a student has a higher need and they need ASL, then I would argue that the school district, for best practices, needs to either provide a certified deaf interpreter from an agency, or they need to have more professional development for students who may or may not be language deprived. When a student doesn't have a first language and they lack a foundation in either a spoken language like English or Spanish, and they lack a foundation in American Sign Language, that requires a high level of skill. So that's why I was deemed not qualified to work for this student at the high school. However, then for the rest of the year, I was her interpreter for mathematics and for art. So I would like clarification from the school district and the Personnel Commission what it actually means to be both a qualified and a certified interpreter. There needs to be also added, I would argue, to the job description of the interpreter that they are also able and willing to work with deaf or hard of hearing professionals. It is not just hearing people coming from our perspective as the oppressive majority to deaf and hard of hearing students. We need to have space in our organization to work with deaf and hard of hearing adults. Deaf and hard of hearing adult mentors could really benefit our students and could strengthen the whole deaf education program as a whole. I would also request that we consider the staffing issues at the high school because there were 2 deaf students and 2 interpreters. That is insufficient. There needs to be 2 interpreters per 1 deaf student for team interpreting. If it's done at the middle school where they have less lectures and it's less intense of a cognitive load, then I would argue they need to have the same at the high school for true language accessibility and equity. I know I'm almost out of time. I have another question. I would like to know from the Personnel Commission, I've asked HR, I've asked my immediate supervisor, and I have asked the superintendent. I've not heard back from anybody. I would like to know who the ADA coordinator is for Berkeley Unified School District. I was told that we had somebody in that position. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm writing your last item. And I'm just going to ask that our executive director reach out to you separately to help you triage some of your questions. These are all important items, not all of which are within our purview. And I'd like to make sure that we point you in the right direction for the things that don't belong to the Personnel Commission. Let me move on. Mark Ramia has his hand up. Mark, why don't you go ahead? We'll unmute you.
Good afternoon, Mark Ramia here, Berkeley High School. Good afternoon, commissioners. I come to you with ongoing concerns. Repeatedly, we, the rank and file, have asked you to act independent of the district. We don't see that happening. The district bought a system that does not perform all the necessary functions. So the district forcefully shifted duties onto administrative twos without equal compensation. Technology made an error and added more duties to the same class with no additional compensation. Separate situations. Administration is aware of the issue and has not moved to a legal resolution. Being shorthanded is causing extra work to be shifted onto the rank and file who work directly with students. In many cases, IEPs are not being followed or the students' resources are being watered down. This is getting worse across the district. Administration is aware of the issues and has not moved to a legal resolution. Evaluations were done at BHS by Kristen Hardy, a supervisor who was in the district 3 to 4 months. and had not met all of the rank and file she is responsible for supervising, Classified Director Charlie Castillo is very aware of the multiple violations in this case. After arguing and fact proving, there has been only one evaluation overturned, when in fact, all that were conducted by this supervisor should be. The same supervisor is extending employees' FTEs, but not their compensation. She is violating law, the CBA, and basic rights. Retaliation and retaliatory actions are being taken against the rank and file for speaking up. If that isn't the intent, it definitely looks and feels like it. Having the compensation study would have helped if it was done in a timely manner. We're still waiting. Having processes that everyone follows would help. Having properly trained administrators would help. The state of our system proves that. Mark is reading my words since I'm falsely accused of being aggressive for standing up for students and staff over and over again about the same violations from the district as the oversight boards look on. I'm also considered impertinent because I don't stand by as an administration breaks the law, ed code, or policy. I get falsely labeled the quote, angry Black woman, end quote, because of the color of my voice. We're in a workspace that can create great change, but we keep producing the same unjust. Please make sure to include pertinent statements from this comment because the rank and file need to see that they aren't standing alone. Signed, Lynette Robinson. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Just bear with me a second. Mark, we normally don't do Q&A here, but I would just like to understand what technology choice you're referring to, or Lynette is referring to in this statement.
Towards the, oh, sorry. Did somebody else start to say something? I don't want to cut somebody else off.
No, no,
Okay.
no, go ahead, please.
Toward the end or toward the middle? When I said
At the beginning, it sounded like part of the statement was about a technology choice that had shifted duties to certain classes.
Yeah, I'm not aware of what that is. I thought she was talking about the systems that are, and when I've had some conversations personally myself and was told by the district several years ago that certain systems were down having to do with certain complaints, et cetera. So I don't know which system, but she said the district bought a system that does not perform all necessary functions. So we've had problems with payroll. I know that for sure. And shifted, so the district forcefully shifted duties onto administration twos. So I don't know, but it said technology made an error. No, I don't know the exact equipment, but I assume it's in the district office on 2020 Bonar.
So I would ask that
Go ahead.
someone write to us and let us know what it is that Lynette had in mind.
For the technology. Okay.
Yes, yeah, I just want to very specifically understand what her comments referred to.
And to send it to all three of you, right?
You send it to Executive Director Castillo. He'll make sure it gets around.
All right, thank you,
All right.
Eddie.
Sure.
We're done?
We have about 2 more minutes left in public comment. And Marie, you're sort of in shadow. I don't know if you're raising your hand or what. Yes? All right, let's unmute Marie, please. And we've got 2 minutes.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Please go ahead.
Heidi, Lynette is referring to the payroll system and the Infinite Campus system.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so just a quick question really fast. When you get to my item, do I speak to it then or do I speak to it during public comments?
Your item is queued, so that's when we'll talk about your item. Your item is 7C.
No, that's why I'm asking for clarity. Can I speak at that time when you talk about my item or do I do it during public comments?
No, you can speak at that time.
Thank you for clarifying.
You bet. Okay. I think we have another public comment segment at the end of this meeting. If anyone else has comments who didn't get a chance in this first public comment segment. Let me move on to approval and adoption of the agenda.
I move approval and adoption of the agenda.
And I'll second.
Thank you. I agree. So we'll go forward with this agenda as it is. We'll move to item 5, and this is reports. I saw Frank Hernandez, there he is. So President Hernandez, have you got a report for the union?
Yeah, I have no report at this time. I'll comment.
Got it, thank you. So we'll move over to 5B for district report, and I saw Glenn DeLay here. We probably need to unmute her. There we go.
Yes, I'm here. No reports, thank you.
Okay. Then we'll move on to commissioner reports. And I'll look at my fellow commissioners. Has anyone got a report?
I have no report.
Okay, looks like Commissioner Roeder does.
Yeah, I would just like to make a few comments. The first is, as I've been doing at meetings recently, I wanted to give a very brief update on our merit rules revision project. So the commission met yesterday from 9 to noon regarding the first draft of the updated merit rules. And what we worked on and finished is the out of class and reclassification sections. Again, as a first draft, we'll be meeting again on June 15th from 9 to noon. And there we'll be discussing and drafting the establishing of eligibility lists sections. So I want to very much appreciate our staff who were there, Executive Director Castillo, Aaron Aranez, and Brian Westover for their diligence and sticking with this project. We've got a long way to go, but we're making a lot of progress. So that's item number 1. Item number 2 is, as others have been doing, I want to welcome our incoming new superintendent. Will be joining us in July, and I just wanted to ask either our chairperson or our executive director if they wouldn't consider inviting her to an upcoming meeting at some point once she gets her self settled in and learn a little bit more about the processes of the Personnel Commission. And then finally, I just wanted to recognize that once again, we've had a difficult year in the district due primarily overwhelmingly to the pandemic, but recently had some serious safety issues that have come to the fore. And today I watched the slideshow honoring the retirees from the district. And I was really moved. And I was particularly moved by the classified employees who are retiring, many of them having put in 20, 25, 30 years and more in the district. So as a parent of a Berkeley student alumnus and as a member of the community of Berkeley, I really want to thank all of the classified retirees and all of the classified employees and wish all of you a good and healthy summer. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you. That's really beautifully put. I was also going to just express my gratitude to our retirees. I don't think I could say it any more eloquently though than Commissioner Roeder did. And also to reiterate, the safety news that's come out is worrisome, and it's a real reminder, that our first obligation is to the students, to keeping them educated and to keeping them safe. And it's it's scary times. So, sort of renews my resolve that that remains centered in the work that I do on this commission. Executive Director, have you got a report for us?
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. I also would like to congratulate the retirees. I have to say, I'm not just envious of their dedication, but envious that they get to retire and have fun. Congratulations to the graduates as well. High school graduation is a really important time. My regular report, we had 123 exams this month. 28 were training and experience, 62 were written, 22 were oral, and 11 were performance. Right now, I'm currently working on 5 reclassifications, 4 from BCCE, 1 is from Local 21. I think it reiterates the point I've made, and I think that we've all made as a governing body that we are very, desirous of a class and comp study because clearly a lot of our job classifications are not aligned with the work. We have 3 new hires, and we are moving forward with our merit rules project. I'm going to talk to the team and try to see if we can send out a reminder over the summer, because over the summer, maybe we can get some folks to attend. Generally, my concern is that these rules will be rolled out towards the end and we'll have 57 people or something for public comment. So this is definitely meant to be an interactive process, a process of observance and taking notes and giving us feedback. So I'm hoping that they're better attended. Speaking to Commissioner Roeder's point, I think after June 8th, we're keeping our fingers crossed that the class and comp budget is approved by the board, so we can proceed. And then lastly, I think after reading Dr. Stevens's email last night and reading what was in the Chronicle and a few other local papers, it was a big story. I think it's even in the national news. Thankfully, no incident in Berkeley, but our police department and our staff stopped it. But it did ask myself what we could do. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to talk to Lisa and Paula Phillips and see what type of professional development we can have maybe at the beginning of the year for safety, for alertness, and maybe for staff. I don't know. Something to that effect. I think that we can probably do something in the way of training, at least in terms of awareness. And that's it. Those are my my report. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you for the good idea about pursuing PD alternatives to heighten everyone's awareness of safety. We'll move on to item 6. These are our consent items. These are eligibility lists. We have, I think, 10 today. Before we put it up for a vote, nobody has pulled any particular items, but I will ask the commissioners if anybody has comments on any of the lists.
I do not.
I have no comments.
Okay. I just have a couple, which is, number 1, wow, 10 lists. We've been busy. Appreciate that. And what I've noted is some of the items where we've had trouble actually getting ranks, like nutrition services, we actually got 3 ranks, and that was exciting. I see that we still have some that are thin. And I would just ask maybe Executive Director that you sort of speak to what our challenges are on those, so we understand better what is going on with those. And the ones that are thin are the cook, which had 1 rank, the EA to the board, the senior worker comp specialist, and the student assessment specialist, each of which had 2 ranks.
Chairperson, did you want me to speak to those now?
If you don't mind, yeah.
Not at all. I wish I could give you a complicated, complex answer, but I think what it boils down to is that nutrition services generally doesn't pay well. The hours are somewhat inconsistent because they're in blocks. The scheduling is difficult. And recruitment efforts there are difficult from a monetary standpoint, because if you do some analysis for the amount of work and what we pay hourly, some of our competitors are in and out, you know. So we are talking, we did start a conversation with Pauline. Pauline is on board. I think that, if I'm not mistaken, Pauline is going to suggest something in terms of budget to the board. I have made my suggestions. I know that Samantha has as well. Samantha, our Associate Superintendent of Human Resources. So I'm hoping to make some progress over the summer so that we can look at, you know, solving some of these recruitment issues. And I do know that Bonnie, our head of nutrition services, that I know that she has also been creative with the scheduling. Obviously, a full-time position is always more attractive than a part-time one, but there's the challenges still remain. So we're hoping to tackle that on that front in terms of the hourly rate.
Thank you. Anything on the others?
The chef?
Well, no, the chef or the cook, I think we had talked about earlier, and I get that. It was some of the others, the EA to the board, item E, list E, and then lists I and J, the workers' comp specialist and the student assessment specialist.
You know, honestly, Chairperson, I don't have an answer for you yet. I think I would have to really do a deep dive into the applicant pool. I do want to talk to some colleagues, and I also want to talk to our folks at Careers in Government. I don't have an answer yet, but hopefully I'll have an answer for you at the next meeting.
All right, I appreciate that. You know, what I see, you know, when I look at the your summary of examinations, is it looks like there was a lot of fall off that, you know, in the written, you know, I'm looking at the payroll and the workers' comp specialist as an example. You know, we had 5 folks who made it through the written, and then only 1 or 2 who seemed to make it through the oral.
Yeah.
So, you know, I just wondering, you know, it's, you know, I understand that it's specialized, and, you know, of course, we want people who are trained in what we do.
Mhm.
So I would appreciate just understanding a little better what we think happened there. You know, same sort of with the EA. It looks like we had 5 in the written and only 2 who progressed to the oral. So I don't know if people are, you know, changing their minds between the 2 or something else. So appreciate that. All right. I see Frank Hernandez has his hand up. Frank, is your comment pertinent to the consent items?
Yeah, I don't know if it's proper to bring it up at this time, but it is about these items. It has something to do with, you know, if you're recommending to take to do the items or not. So I could comment afterwards if you think that's better, at the end of the commission, of the meeting.
Okay. Okay. All right. Let's save it for that then. Thank you. Thank you. All right then. Let's go ahead and vote on our consent items. Do I have a motion?
So I would move approval of the consent item lists A through J.
I will second.
Thank you. And I agree. So we will consider lists A through J all approved. Let's move on to our conference items. So we'll start with 7A. Executive Director, would you like to talk to us about this one?
Absolutely, Chairperson. And let me zoom up a little bit. So this is for the, this is a step advance request for our school campus aid. This is definitely an area of need. It is a high recruitment area. I think that we definitely want to attract folks, but more importantly, when they come to us with more than 10 years of experience, we definitely want to recruit them and retain them. So we did confirm the amount of years of experience coming in. And the recommendation is simply that. We want to make sure that Ms. St. John is recruited and retained at the salary step that she had requested, given her years of experience.
And I'll put it now to the commissioners to see if anybody has questions or comments. Commissioner Roeder, please go ahead.
I don't really have too many questions. I agree fully with Executive Director Castillo. Ms. St. John is highly qualified for this position, it appears. And given the fact that it's a position that's difficult to recruit, and the starting pay is really not very high, to put it mildly, I'm supportive of the executive director's recommendation.
And I would agree. Yes, I agree.
I do have a question. When I was reading through the materials and her letter, it looked to me like what she was asking for was placement at $18.50 per hour, which I see corresponds to step 2, you know, give or take, right? The hourly is $18.63. I see though that what your recommendation is that we put her at step 5, which is $21.59. So I'm wondering about the difference.
I might let Aaron speak to this, but I initially had drafted this at a step 2 because it did say 1850, which is what it correlated with the step. But somewhere in the process, she wanted to amend that to a step 5. I was hoping to get an amended letter, but she might have gotten busy and didn't send it. But I can, if you need more detail than that, I can have Aaron speak to it. I didn't speak to Toby about the second request.
Aaron, I would like to hear. Thank you.
Yeah, so she submitted her paperwork several weeks ago, and then as we were corresponding to get the forms in, she let me know that she wanted to revise her request, and so she did it in the actual form, but she probably didn't realize that she needed to change it in the actual, because so basically that form that shows her request at step 5, that came in like 2 weeks after the first request. Yeah.
Okay. What do you think encouraged her to change it?
I'm not sure, but we did have a conversation, and she maybe felt like she would be asking too much initially if it were a step 5. But I let her know that, you know, she can request what she's comfortable with. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So I think I don't have her letter in the exact letter in front of me, but whatever the date of that letter, what you're telling me is 2 weeks later, she came forward and through email exchanges amended it basically to be a step 5.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. All right, so the item in front of us is a request for advanced step placement for step 5, $21.59 an hour for Toby St. John. Do I have a motion?
Yes, I move that we approve the request to step 5 for Toby St. John.
And I'll second.
I agree. So this passes. All right. I think we're lucky to get someone with that kind of experience and looks like that kind of love and interest of working with kids. Do we know where she's stationed, assigned?
Aaron, do you know? I don't remember. I'm sorry.
I want to say that she's going to Oxford, Oh, sorry, John Muir.
It's John Muir, yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, right.
That's
It
right.
sounded like she was it Muir in her correspondence. I didn't know if that's where she'll continue.
Yeah, it's John Muir.
Okay, and I suppose that this really takes effect. I don't know, when's the last day of school? You know, we've got, what, a week?
A week.
Yeah.
Normally what we do, Chairperson, is that tomorrow we would send an email with the approval date as today, and we always do it the next business day,
Mhm.
which would be tomorrow.
Okay, so it'll be step 5 for a week, basically, and then, you know, when she comes back next year, it sounds like.
Tomorrow is the last day of school.
Oh, is tomorrow the, wow, all right, ends earlier than I thought. Okay, so be it. Okay. All right, let's move on to item 7B. This is a request to extend an eligibility list, and Executive Director, would you talk us through this one?
Definitely. I think we've had, I know Commissioner Roeder and I have talked about this before, and I definitely scrutinize the extensions just for the simple fact that I'm a very, very strong proponent of making sure that we exam regularly. That said, I think that both the principal, the assistant principal, and the union have all expressed an interest, in addition to the employees themselves, regarding the extension of the list. I think that there are special circumstances. I do know that the list has been in effect just 1 year. But because the school admin too is not something that we recruit for very often, that combined with the fact that we have someone who is on the list who's backfilling someone on leave, we all believe that probably an extension, if there's ever a need for one, I would tend to agree with it in spirit, because we haven't had a chance to canvass a list or use it or call anyone on it. And the people that are on the list are employees. I know that we have 2 of them that are on the list. So I'm always one to want to promote from within, or definitely make someone who's limited term a permanent person. That's always a great thing to do. So given those circumstances, I actually support the principal and the union and the employees on this, and that's why I'm making the request.
And you mentioned a school administrative assistant too, but I think what you meant was a 3, right?
Sorry.
3, okay.
That's,
all right.
yes, thank you.
Just double checking.
Sorry, correct. Yeah.
Okay, all right. Let me ask my fellow commissioners if they have questions.
Well, the one question that I have is, so what you're asking for is just a 1-year extension. What should happen after that year if we're at the same place then that we are now? Is there some idea that you would ask to extend this list again?
No, I would not.
So then at that point, it would just go, let's say that a position came open, would go through regular channels, people would have to apply, exam, and then a new list would be generated.
Yes, I do think 2 years is it's a lot.
Yeah.
I think a year, given the circumstances, is reasonable, especially since we're going into the summertime. You know, I think that's why I did think about this a lot, you know, and that's why I'm recommending it.
Commissioner Roeder.
Thank you. So just to follow up for a moment on Commissioner Zener Davis's comments. So if the commissioners recall, a few meetings ago, we did have a request to extend a list that had already been extended once for another year. And the commissioners unanimously agreed not to extend that list, but rather to go ahead and perform a recruitment, which I think was definitely the correct decision. Under our current rules of the BUSD merit rules, we only have the ability to extend the list for one additional year. Now, the education code has been changed since the merit rules were originally written. And now there is the ability for the commission to have the discretion to extend for an additional year after that. And that's, kind of timely because we're going to be discussing eligibility lists at our next meeting on June 15th. So that's a time when we can discuss, and perhaps either BCCE or Local 21 or the district, if they have some thoughts, and if they can't attend the meeting, putting those thoughts in an email could be very helpful, or even expressing them now. About how long should eligibility lists be extended. And I'm totally supportive of extending this one, especially given it's a robust list. We haven't utilized it apparently. There are 2 current incumbent employees who are highly ranked on the list and highly qualified. They come with recommendations from the school site. So for all those reasons, I agree with the executive director that this list should be extended. I do have a question, and I see Mr. Hernandez has his hand up, and I don't know if he wants to try to answer this question, but I've been pondering what are the standards that the commission should utilize when considering whether to extend a list or not? Because it seems to me there are competing interests. There's, like in this case, we have 2 highly qualified incumbent employees who want the opportunity to be promoted from this list. On the other hand, there are also possibly other employees in the district who would like to compete. And if we just keep extending lists, then those employees don't have the opportunity to compete for available positions. So I see those as
Whoop, looks like he froze up. Do the rest of you see that, or is it me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I
that's right.
saw it too. I thought it might have been me for a second.
No.
Yeah.
All right. Commissioner Roeder, come back. Should we text him, chat, and tell him he froze?
I can text him.
Yeah, okay. I guess while we're trying to figure that out, I don't know, I see 2 hands raised on this. I'd like to make some comments, and then we'll go to the others, and if we get Commissioner Roeder back, we lost him completely now, right? We'll give him a chance to finish up. So what I'd like to understand, I think I heard you made mention of this, the School Administrative Assistant 3, we only have 1 in BUSD, is that right, at the high school?
That's my understanding, yes.
Right.
Oh, no,
And-
Aaron says no. How many do we have, Aaron?
We have 3.
3, okay.
Really? Okay. And just for my own edification, 1 at adult school, 1 at the high school? I didn't think we had 1.
Yeah, the alternative high school.
Do we
Oh.
have 1 at the alternative high school?
Yes, that was
Okay.
a reclass.
I didn't.
Okay, got it. Okay, just trying to remember. And my question was, are there vacancies? And it sounds like there's a leave of absence at 1 of them. Is that what's going on here?
Yes. Yes, there's a leave at Berkeley High, I believe.
Okay. So, and do we know something about this leave that we know it will extend into next year?
Right now, we're not sure. It's not supposed to go beyond into next year, but it's likely that it might, which
Mhm.
is why we're requesting the extension. I mean, I think it's somewhat ambiguous as to how long it would be, but it's definitely going to go through the summer. So, you know, we'll check in with the employee probably at the end of summer to get another update. But
right.
the person who is backfilling that leave is on that list.
Right. No, I understand. And what I would like to make sure I understand is when we have an active list and someone is on a leave of absence or doesn't come back from a leave of absence or something like that, I understand that we use the lists as, our talent pool to do that. If we don't have a list, what happens?
Well, if we don't have a list and we start a recruitment, sometimes we may use the applicants on a list. Sometimes. There are also, sorry, Chairperson. Commissioner Roder just is texting. Okay, he says, sorry, something happened to his internet. So I'll tell him we'll wait.
Does he want to join us on audio while he's trying to figure out his internet?
Would you like me to? I'll ask him.
Yeah, it's better than him not being here, I think. Thank you, everyone, for bearing with us for a minute.
The wonders of pandemic technology. Okay, here we go. Do we want to join on phone? Okay, I texted him.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we had very few applicants. It's extended actually right now. If I'm looking at my notes correctly, until 2023. So
with the leave of absence.
It's going into January, actually. I thought it was through the summer, but it's going into 2023. When we need applicants, we just do another recruitment. But right now, we just want to be able to keep the employee that is, the employees who are on the list as the possible candidates that we would be able to hire off the list into the position.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate that. Okay, while Commissioner Roder is figuring out how to rejoin, let me go up to folks who have their hands up. And Frank, I don't know if that is your old raised hand or if this is a raised hand because of this.
Yeah, this is a new one.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I support extending the list. It's been, as long as I've been in the district, there's members here who have been here longer, but as long as I've been in the district, it's been the norm to, if someone requests to extend the list, that they extend the whole list for 1 year. And, not more than 1 year, but just 1 year. And there are pros and cons, like Izzy said. But I think when there's promotional people on the list, it definitely, they should be extended. And it's always been that way since I've been in here. They have always, if it's requested, then they extend it for 1 year. But it does have to be requested, which it was in this case.
All right, thank you.
That's it.
And Commissioner Roder, I see you're back.
Yes, I'm back. I'm so sorry. I had a power outage and it disconnected the computer, but I was able to hear Frank Hernandez's last comments. So that helped. So I appreciate it.
Did you have anything further you wanted to say? You
No.
sounded like you were winding up, but I couldn't.
No, I
tell.
was finished.
Okay, great. All right. I thought someone else had their hand up. Was that you,
It was
Marie?
Denise.
It was Denise. Okay, right, there it is. Okay, it's back now. Denise, please go ahead.
Yes, I was just going to say that since this seems to be a hard position to recruit and get people to sign up for, and I understand that there's going to be the meeting on June 15th to talk about the eligibility list, which I probably will not be able to attend because I'm working. But someone mentioned, I think Charlie mentioned that if you extend it and there's other people that want to compete, well, if you could extend it 1 more year, because whoever wanted to compete didn't apply this time and they may not apply that time. So giving promotional people an opportunity is really beneficial, and anybody new can still apply and be on the list as new, even if they are promotional or not.
Can I get a clarification on that? Because that actually confuses me a little. It looks to me like the last time we opened a recruitment on this list was July of 2021, which was still sort of COVID lockdown, right? Over the summer, right? That's the last time we ran a recruitment. Do I have that right?
I would have to check on that, Chairperson.
It looks like Aaron is nodding,
Oh,
so,
okay, okay.
all right, so the last time we ran the recruitment was sort of during lockdown. And what this means if we extend it, unless for some reason we have vacancies in, all the positions and we rip through the whole list, we wouldn't recruit again until July of 2023. Just to be clear. Okay. All right. Is there anybody else who has anything they want to say about this? All right, then let's put it up to a vote. Do I have a motion?
I move that we extend the list for another year.
And I will second.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll go ahead and say for item 7B that we're extending the school administrative assistant 3 list as it exists today to June. Is it June 30 of 2023? Yep.
Yes.
All right. Aaron's nodding. Thank you.
Yes.
All right. Okay, great. Thank you. All right, let's move on to item 7C, which is a request for reclassification. We have 2 today. This one is Marie Ferguson. So Secretary, I'm going to ask you to please talk us through this one also. And then we'll go to commissioners and then we'll open up for comments.
Yes, thank you, Chairperson. Ms. Ferguson attended our meeting March 3rd, and at that time she had done the initial request for the reclassification. Admittedly, I was unclear because at the meeting she stated that it wasn't necessarily a reclass, but a salary increase. So after clarifying with Ms. Ferguson and Ms. Robinson, I went ahead and proceeded with a reclassification. As we all know, but I'll say it anyway for the record, the reclassification has to be 2 years of a gradual accretion of duties. That does not include more work, unfortunately. It does not include new ways of doing your work, nor does it include too much work. And these are unfortunate circumstances, but those are the parameters of a reclass. So I did not find a gradual accretion of work. What I did find was that Ms. Ferguson is very highly respected at her work site. Her principal, her supervisor are very supportive of her. But I did not, there was no evidence to support a gradual accretion for 2 years. So I'm not recommending a reclass for Ms. Ferguson. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Let me open it to comment from the commissioners. Either have comments or no?
Well, I personally would like to hear from Ms. Ferguson, if possible, because I think she was desirous of addressing the commission, and then I could talk about it.
All right, so you want to reserve your comments till later. Did you feel the same way, Commissioner Davis?
Well, actually, there was on the form in his recommendation, you say that it's at 46. The school administrative assistant is at range 46, and the school administrative assistant 2 substitute specialist is at range 48, which places it 2 steps higher than other school administrative assistants 2s. And so that's where I guess for clarification, that's where Miss Ferguson is right now.
Yes.
She's at 48.
48, not 46.
She's at
48.
48, not 46.
That's correct.
Okay. All right. And yeah, I agree with Commissioner Roder. I'd love to hear from Ms. Ferguson.
Okay, then let's go ahead. If there's anyone else who would like to speak on this aside from Marie Ferguson, please raise your hand or wave or let me know. But we'll go ahead and ask Marie to speak.
Good afternoon, everyone. Do you want me to speak to their questions, or do I do my statement that I have first?
However you want to do it.
Okay, I'm going to read my statement and then I'll answer you guys' question. So I want this statement to go on record. Charlie had in his mind at the March meeting when I submitted all the documentation that he was not going to do the reclass. So he just flat out refused before even taking a look at it. I had given all my necessary documents plus letters of recommendation. Charlie was very adamant in his tone, his demeanor towards me. If asking 4 questions in an email and reiterating the negative stance is an investigation, then someone needs to investigate the process. Because of the lack of understanding of the work and details involved in asking for specific time spent. Time depends on how many homeless students that I have, low income students, and parents come to my window. This is one of the questions that I was asked. How many probation officers show up to see students, and I have to pull the students out of class and provide the probation officers with the information that is needed. I also trained 2 VPs, Tanya Coleman and Rock. This should not have been falling to my lap in training and 2 VPs, because the process of registration is not stable and keeps changing. If I can say how many minutes or hours, I would. Again, these are questions that was asked by Charlie. The time isn't, inclusive of extra steps and work that has come about. Who checks on how many workforce will be impacted? Who is responsible and accountable for added jobs that's outside of our job description? My supervisor was interviewed by Charlie back in May, but no in-person interview or desk audit with me was done. Charlie stated in the PC minutes from March he will be conducting an interview with me and speaking with my supervisor. Charlie stated to my supervisor the work that I'm doing in my job description, and increased due to COVID. I disagreed with the statement. I have been doing the return mail and other duties since 2017. That was in the program assistant's job description. Charlie had asked me in an email what was my availability. I had provided him dates and I was waiting for him to contact me for an interview, which never happened. So I sent an email to ask him what was the update and the status on May 12th. Then he sends me an email with his findings, which I thought was very odd, because how can you come up with a finding and you never sat down and met with the employee, nor did you do a desk audit to come to those conclusions. So that was done unfairly all the way around. Then I've come before this board numerous of times with you, Heidi, being present. The only part of the previous reclass that was focused on was the substitute part that is done through HR by their sub coordinator. She finds substitutes for the K-8 program, which I have to find substitutes via text message, emails to subs to cover. That was the only piece that I was reclassed on from Patty, because that was the focus. All the other duties that I've been doing since 2017, I'm still doing, which was in a higher paying position. So I'm totally disagreeing with what he's saying, because I do have a gradual increase in duties. And if he would have met with me, he would have found that out. So that's all I have to say to that. Mr. Roder, what is your question again?
No, I'm very pleased to hear your comments. And I want to hear what the executive director's response to your comments are. I'm frankly a little bit confused, to tell you the truth. And because, and of course, Commissioner Zener Davis and myself were not present in previous reviews of this situation. But I think I recall correctly, and Ms. Ferguson, you can correct me if I'm wrong about this. I think that you had said in your comments at the previous meeting that the classification, the job description captured and captures what it is that you do, that the job, the functions of your position. And as I understood it, what you were saying and concerned about is that previously these functions had been performed at a range that was salary range 50 by an individual. That person is no longer there, and due to a previous reclassification study, that position was eliminated, and that now you were reclassified in 2019 to create the administrative to substitute position at salary range 48. And my understanding was that you felt that they had placed this job at an incorrect salary range, and that the more appropriate salary range was the previous one, which was salary range 50, but that the duties that were described in the classification specification were correct. That was my understanding of your position. So I don't know if that's if that understanding is correct or what.
Okay, let me see if I can help you understand. The position before I got it was a program assistant at range 50. The position was eliminated in 2015-2016 school year due to the classification study. Then they posted the position in 2016 as a school secretary 2, which I performed. And then once I hit the 2-year mark, I filled out the paperwork for a reclass. The only difference between the school secretary 2 and the school secretary sub specialist, what I am. The difference is K-8 substitutes are found through the coordinator at HR. At Berkeley High School, I'm the only person that handles that. I have to find the subs, edit and modify the substitutes, and put it in the system. K-8 doesn't do that. I do that. So they reclassed me just upon the substitute part, but all the other duties that I mentioned before was never looked at. And that's when I'm coming before this body again. And if you want me to send you the documentation, I can. They're not looking at the full entire thing of what I'm doing. And if Charlie would have done a correct interview with me, he would have known that. And you guys have to understand, at the K-8 level, elementary, they have 11 secretaries. Their student population is nowhere near the high school. We have like 3,200 students. I'm the only person that's doing all the enrollment and transfers. And part of that is in my documentation that I've submitted. And I don't understand this position. The program assistant existed for 20 plus years, and they come in and wipe it out, demote it down to a school admin 2, and the work remains on that desk. They didn't take the work away. So I'm doing my work, which they classified me as a 48, in addition to the work of the 50. It never left from 2017 till now.
Okay, thank you. I think I understand it a little bit better.
Thank you. Mr. Davis, you had a question for me?
Well, I'm trying to work this out as well. And so I believe I hear you saying that there were duties that went along with your original role that they reclassified and then made it a 48. And then there was an additional role that was added to that. Am I correct in that, or am I hearing that wrong?
You're hearing it. You're sort of kind of hearing the work from the program assistant when they eliminated never went away. There were
Right.
duties that I've been doing since 2017. That's from the program assistant where I'm a 48. I'm doing more work that's outside of what I should be doing because it was in a different position at a higher pay. No one looked at what happened to that work because they eliminated the position. I'm still doing it. And I brought this up in the reclass of 2017, with 2019. Patty Dool did not take a look at that. She only looked at the substitute piece. So I brought this up before. It was never dealt with. And that's why I'm bringing it before you guys.
Mr. Davis, do you have other questions, or if I may, can I give a little bit of a timeline?
Yeah, go ahead.
What I remember here, and I think probably Secretary Castillo also, maybe working from a timeline here. Before the class and comp study occurred, and now we're reaching way back into the teens, right? 2012 class and comp study. There was a program assistant position that existed at a salary level range 50. When the class and comp study evaluated it, they downgraded it. Okay. And they took what used to be called that program assistant role. They called it, school admin assistant 2. And they conceived that school admin assistant 2, no matter where you were, high school, middle school, wherever, was the same role. Okay. So that's the class and comp study 2012. It took BUSD a long time to implement that class and comp study. We didn't really implement it until July of 2016, which meant starting in 2017, it was implemented, right? Beginning of 2017 school year. Beginning of 2016, 2017 school year. So we've talked about this several times. As Marie has said, it's come before the commission several times. I would ask Secretary Castillo, I don't know if he has, former Director Duell's notes. My impression was she looked at everything and concluded that the sub work is what was different. I know she did a desk audit. And somewhere in my archives, I actually have her notes, and I can look for them if we need to find them. But I think she looked at everything. So, she came back with a recommendation, and that recommendation was because of the differences in the sub duties to reclass the position, to include explicitly in its title, substitute management, put it at the range 48 to distinguish it from the other admin 2 positions that were at 46. So, okay, 2019, time goes on. Marie's brought it back up for reconsideration, and I have 2 thoughts. One thought is there seems to be a difference of opinion about trying to make arrangements for a meeting for a desk audit. And I don't want to get into the specifics of what happened there so much as I want to just ask everybody to restart on that and to arrange a time to please do a desk audit. All right. I know Secretary Castillo knows what the desk audit should look like and the amount of time he needs. And I know Ms. Ferguson has expressed her interest in having that done. So I'm going to ask that we please do a desk audit. To look at the duties so that we can compare it with what Secretary Duell did when she was in the role, to understand if if there has been a gradual accretion of duties. I don't know any other way to understand that or figure that out. Is that something we can do?
So Chairperson, you're asking me to go back and do a desk audit despite the evidence that's been presented? Because
Right.
unless, I just want to be clear, so I do have Patty's notes. I have all of her notes. I read all of her notes. I spoke to Ms. Duell.
Right.
I looked at all the evidence. I actually spent an hour and a half with both Tanya Coleman and Juan Riagoza.
Mhm.
There is nothing that Ms. Ferguson submitted that is not within the job description or that was covered by Ms. Duell.
I understand.
If you are the governing body, I am the executive director. If you are asking me to do a desk audit, I will. But as long as you bring it up, I want to be very clear that there's appropriateness in how to conduct yourself with people, and then there isn't. And I think Ms. Ferguson, despite her feelings, needs to be respectful to me. She needs to be cooperative and not inflammatory. And I think she knows what I mean. So the reason we didn't meet is twofold. The first is because she said, why do we need to meet? Because you have all the evidence and that you've already talked to everybody. The second was that she said she found my presence on Zoom to be offensive. My presence. So that in itself is not okay. It's not okay to say that to anyone. I don't know who Ms. Ferguson talked to think that that is okay. But that said, if that is what you're directing me to do, I will go back to my original invitation, which I sent, which was a 90-minute meeting to sit down and shadow Ms. Ferguson around so that I understand and get a good sense of what a day in the life is for Ms. Ferguson. That would be fine. That said, my recommendation was based on evidence, not just the evidence that was submitted, but the evidence that Ms. Duell already submitted. I think that some of the conclusions are inaccurate, but that said, of course, but I want to be very clear. I am not here to be verbally abused. I am not here to be castigated and predetermined. There's a lot of comments that frankly are inappropriate. They're disrespectful. And I simply chose to not interact with someone who was going to be disrespectful, to be honest. So I did ask for those questions. Those were the questions that I would be asking in person. Nothing in the methodology would change. Nothing in the steps would change. And frankly, unless there's evidence that she's going to present that she hasn't presented so far, I just don't see it. It's not to say it doesn't exist, but I just don't see it.
I understand.
Can I just quickly, I think we all need to be careful in the tone that this is starting to take. I understand that this is, delicate, volatile stuff. But I think it is incumbent upon all of us to be mindful about how we speak to one another and how we express ourselves, because I fear that rather than having constructive disagreements, things become personal, and then we start bumping and getting into places that I don't necessarily think we want to go, or that we need to go, or that are constructive for us to go. And so I'll end that there. I think I'm also wondering, because I hear Ms. Ferguson saying that there are duties that I'm assuming are not in the job description that were a part of the duties when it was reclassified as something else, that those duties are still there, although they may not necessarily be in the job description. And because of that, that's sort of why she's saying this needs to be looked at again, because there's an assumption that there are duties that are not there that are still actually there.
Thank you for that. Maria, I know you want to speak, and I just want to ask, I agree with Commissioner Davis. What I don't want us to dissolve to is bickering, you said, you know, back and forth. My question was very deliberate, which was to say, could we restart? You have both said, you know, in different forms that there was an interest in doing a desk audit. And if there is really an interest in doing a desk audit, let's go ahead and do that. And the reason I'm suggesting it is, you know, not, you know, I hope not to have sparks fly, but there were some pretty heavy accusations, you know, that were leveled in the course of this discussion, including from the get-go, Marie, that you believe that Charlie made a decision that the answer was no when you queued up the item in March. And, you know, that concerns me. That, you know, I don't think that's how Charlie operates, but, you know, it certainly shouldn't be. And I feel sad that you think that that's how he operated. So please let me finish, and then I'll give you the floor. So one of the things I know is that there was new evidence collected. I know sometimes supervisors don't always have the, you know, the full breadth understanding of what goes on in a particular job. What I do know that we have is something that was done by Director Duell when she was here that I think was pretty thorough. She and I spoke about it at length, and I've read it, and I'll refresh myself on it. So, you know, I'm asking for an investment of 90 minutes on the part of each of you so that we cover all the bases and we make sure that we've looked at it appropriately. Marie, go ahead.
First of all, I don't like to be talked about like I'm some horrible person, because I'm not. Your tone towards me, Charlie, I have nothing against you. I don't even know you. When you talk to me and I submitted all my documentation, your demeanor, you don't know if how you was talking, but I'm gonna let that go and be the bigger person. But you will respect me. I'll give you respect. That's not a problem. But I don't like the stuff that he said about me. That's what I don't like. And I'm willing to sit down with him. But the tone that he used at the March meeting, Heidi, it was on for consent. He moved into discussion. I tried to ask a question. His whole body language. So you can't just talk about one person, not seeing the way you was coming off to me. That's where I said he formed his opinion before even doing the process, because the questions, how he was answering it.
Okay, I appreciate that.
That's where I came from, that feeling. And then to come up with the findings, and you didn't even sit down with me to see what I do to interview me, then he will understand where I'm coming from, since I'm doing all these duties since 2017. That's why I brought it up again. If Patty would have dealt with it and it was all fine, I wouldn't have brought it up again. But it was not dealt with, all of the duties. So that's why I'm here before this body again.
So what I get from this is that you are both mutually offended, which I'm sad for both of you.
Well,
I know you both. I think.
Chairperson, I have to interrupt you. I'm not offended. It's offensive. That's the difference. I'm not offended. I don't know Ms. Ferguson. I think that the continuation of this discussion in a public hearing it demeans the meeting. I think that you've already asked, respectfully, the commission has asked me to do a desk audit. I will do one. But the hearsay and the things, I have a right to, I'm an employee as well. And a lot of things have been said in a public hearing that are inappropriate and disrespectful. And Ms. Ferguson has not been able to stay to the professionalism that is required of the meeting. So I think respectfully, I will do what I'm being asked to do, and that's fine. And again, to be clear, I asked Ms. Ferguson for a meeting. I was the one that asked. So again, Ms. Ferguson has again made a comment about my body language, and it's offensive. And again, I too am protected under the laws. It's not just Ms. Ferguson. So I think the tenor of the meeting is what it is. I want to be clear, I'm not offended, yet it's offensive. That's the point. I don't think any Berkeley Unified employee should be making comments like that. So again, I am not Ms. Ferguson's supervisor. You are my supervisor. And I'm asking that we move on. You've asked me, and next week I will send a meeting and I'll report back by the next meeting the findings of my desk audit. Thank you.
Okay. That's what I've asked for. Do any of the other commissioners have a comment before we move on? Okay, hearing none. Then what we are doing with this item 7C is we've agreed for a fairly prompt desk audit. And we will discuss the findings there in a later time. All right, let's move on. Item 7D, also a request for reclassification. Secretary, can you walk us through this one, please?
Of course. Thank you, Chairperson. Sorry, let me get to it. Okay. So let me just set the background here. This position I did not do a desk audit of. And I just want to be clear that the desk audit isn't something that has to be done. I want to make that clear, because if I'm reading the rules correctly, it's at my discretion how it's done, and all of these are done differently. I've been asked by some employees to provide them in writing what my process is, but I think it's been very clear from the get-go that each situation is different. Ms. Ferguson's situation, Paula, everyone's situation is different. When I read Paula Robinson's request, I immediately noticed that she had been doing toileting as part of her job, and that is such a black and white issue in terms of like the 1 and the 2, that I did spend time talking to Paula, but most of my time was actually spent, this is somewhat unusual, but I spoke to Miss Linda Clark at the school site, who's a certificated employee, and she's a special ed person out there. And I don't know the genesis of this. No one can tell me or give me a date, but apparently Miss Robinson's been doing this for several years, quote unquote. So as part of her regular duties, she's also been providing assessment information for, so these are things that are definitely not in a 1, not even close. So this one was, to me, very simple. I don't think it required a desk audit in any way, shape, or form. And again, not to go back to the other issue, but I don't think that there's a predetermined desk audit for any of these. I think that the commission trusts me to make the assessment and make it fact-based. This one was very, very simple in the sense that the gradual accretion has been met in years past. And I don't have an answer for you as to how we got here, but I did ask the question of the school site as to whether Paula is the only one, and apparently she isn't. So this is something I'm going to have to follow up with the school site. And again, I'm not inviting more work. I do know that the employee themselves have to make the request, but it did make me somewhat curious as to how we got here. In summation, I do see that she's doing and has been performing these duties regularly, and she should be a 2 and not a 1. That's it.
Let me thank you for that. Commissioners, do others have questions?
Yeah,
this?
Secretary, you said that when you talked to the folks at the school about whether or not other folks were doing like in, so are we looking that maybe at some point we may be doing a reclassification for that role entirely? And just going back to our the conversation that we had yesterday
Right.
around stuff like this.
Well, I don't, it is about our conversation we had yesterday. I think this, this is one school, mind you, but I don't see how this isn't going to present an issue for other schools, frankly, because I think the combination of understaffing and the school needs, and then the kids, because we never control what kids are coming to the schools. I think all of those things are, in my opinion, making the one obsolete in some ways. In regards to your comment about the specific school, yeah, I did ask. I said, hey, if there's anyone else that's doing this, who's a one, they should contact me.
Yeah.
But I haven't had anyone contact me. I just have the word of Ms. Clark and Janet Levinson, who both say that all of their ones are performing to work, but I haven't had anyone else reach out to me.
Commissioner Roeder?
Well, one area of slight clarification, I think, on reclassifications, and that is that it is not only the employee who can request a reclassification. The site administrator, the administration can request, the union can request a reclassification as well under our rules. And as a matter of fact, and to Commissioner Zener Davis's point from yesterday, because we had a pretty robust discussion about it, the proper procedure, and hopefully the procedure in the future when we clarify our rules, is really that when a site head, a principal, for example, sees that there over a period of time, 2 years, has been the need for, in this case, let's say the duties of a administrative assistant 2 are being performed by an administrative assistant 1, it's really incumbent on both for out of class work and for reclassification that the principal come forward to the executive director, preferably even ahead of time, but in a timely way, and say, look, I need this employee to be doing in a different situation, out of class work, and that employee should be compensated for the additional out of class work. That's the job of the principal to come forward. I think that is something that's been neglected over the years, and we're sort of hopeful. Our plan is that when these merit revisions are adopted, that at that point the executive director and whoever else will go out to the sites and have an educational sessions with principals, with the administration, with the union, with others, to say, here's the proper procedure that ought to be utilized. So I'm sorry to go off on a tangent here, but it is kind of relevant, I think. Thank you.
Very, very relevant. One thing that I wonder about, and then we'll open it up. I see President Hernandez has his hand up. For sure, it looks like we need to reclass. I don't see a recommendation here about pay for out of class work, and it looks like we have that dynamic here. So what I am wondering is if we you know, what's in front of us is the reclass. You know, I get that, but I think we need to double back and figure out if there is some amount of pay for out of class. And I think historically, BUSD, we've never had a really tight process, you know, like you would want on paper, where an administrator knows they're asking someone to work out of class. They know how long they're asking someone to work out of class. And, you know, we plan it ahead of time. That is really the exception rather than the rule. But it looks to me like you've collected enough evidence here to understand this is someone who has been working out of class, you know, at least this school year. So I'd be interested in a proposal to understand, you know, what we can do in terms of out of class pay.
Well, I was prepared for that question. I think that we have to get through the reclass first,
Mhm.
Chairperson. I think there is a component to that. I haven't gotten to the bottom of it in terms of specificity, even though I've asked the question. The question being, how long have they been doing it?
Right.
The answers I've been getting are forever and always and a long time, but that's not something I can do anything with in regards to an out of class. But I hear
Right.
you. I hear you. I wanted to do this as soon as I was able to, when it was supported by evidence and,
Right.
and, you know, I wanted to get the reclass done. So at the very least, we can put Paula in the 2, which is where she belongs. And then maybe I could circle back with the principal and go from there. But
I think that's a good call. It makes sense to me. And, you know, what I'll say is just from my past experience, there's only so far back we can go.
yeah,
And, you know, typically, and Aaron, you can keep me honest here, because I know we've done some, I don't think we've gone back beyond the beginning of the current school year in which we became aware that someone was working out of class.
I think that we have, but it's not something that we brought forward to a PC meeting. It was something that was handled between the director and the employee and HR.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, then, you know, I guess as you get more facts and information, we can figure out what, you know, if pay for out of class is warranted, and if so, for how long.
yeah. And to Aaron mentioned HR, Chairperson. I mean, I definitely want to gather more and be able to present HR with what I think we should do, but with such nebulous information, it's hard to pin
Right.
down a start date.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And I forget who said it. I think you said it. That, you know, your inquiry as to, do we have more of this, is a good idea,
Mhm.
right?
Oh, yeah,
No.
definitely.
So, yeah. Let me turn it over to President Hernandez, who's waited patiently.
Yeah, thanks. I have nothing to add. I just agree with everything Charlie said. I too have had the same conversations with Paula, coworkers, Linda, and it's the same thing. She's been doing as a 2 for forever. And, you know, this is a long time coming. I asked the question, why? I also asked that question. And to be honest with you, because they didn't know. And I'm like, I told them, this is what you have to do. So they reached out to Charlie, and I just want to say, I agree that she should be sped too. I just want to say one thing on reclassing and all that. You know, I can't speak for anyone, but I have spoken to some people, and they have expressed they don't want to be a 2 because of the diapering, or what that entails. So that's one reason. But the other reason is people just don't know how to do it, how to go about getting reclass.
And, you know, that's the sort of thing, it's going to take a multi-part effort. Charlie started a roadshow effort, you know, to be included in the principals meetings, to talk to folks about what the commission does and how some of our processes work. It bears a lot of repeating. I would imagine on the union side, that is also something that if you want us to present, or, these are discussions you want to have with your membership themselves,
Right.
it makes sense, because I think we all feel sort of bad when we hear things like this and sort of wonder, how did it happen? Does anybody else have comments? Okay, if there are no other comments, do I have a motion on 7D?
Well, I move that Paula Robinson be reclassified as instructional assistant to special education effective June 3rd, 2022.
I'll second.
And I agree. So it is done. Thank you for that. All right, let's move on to item 8. This is closed session, and it's 6:06. And as usual, it's always really hard to predict. Muted.
I'll resume recording now.
Okay, great. Okay, super. It's 6:42 p.m. We're back from closed session. The report from closed session is that the commissioners were able to give part 1 of the executive director's review to him. And we are thankful to him for his patience in our putting that together, and the frank and free dialogue that we had about it. That concludes my report. Let's move on to item 10, which is public comment. So again, we devote 15 minutes to public comment, and depending on how many people have comment, we can apportion accordingly. So I see Denise and Kay both have their hands up. Anybody else? Okay, and Frank? Okay, anybody else? All right, then what we'll say is each of you is welcome to take up to 5 minutes, and why don't we go ahead and start with Denise?
Hello, I'm just wondering, we've talked about the compensation classification study for a while now, and I understand it's going to the board and hopefully it'll be approved June 8th. But is there a timeline on what else is happening, how it's going to work, or has that not been established yet? Because once the board approves, we need to, it's a whole nother month before we have another commission meeting, and it would be really great if employees could see that you're working on it and there's a timeline that's set up on when, how, what, where. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Those are good suggestions, and maybe if we have time during public comment, Secretary Castillo can talk to that a little bit. All right, I saw Kay's hand next, so let's go ahead with Kay.
Hello. So I wanted to follow up. Who was the ADA coordinator at for Berkeley Unified?
You're asking, or you want to say more on it?
I'm asking, and then I have a follow-up comment.
Okay, I don't have an answer for you on that one.
Oh, okay. Perhaps you could answer my next question. Do you know who your Charlie Castillo's supervisor is?
You're looking at them.
Ah, yes.
The commissioners supervise the executive director.
Excellent. All right. So I am in the this is an aside. I'm in the process of getting my reasonable accommodations at my school site, and the school district has offered me accommodations that are not feasible, and they're prohibitive given my disability. And a suggestion from Job Accommodation Network was to go up the chain of command. So I will follow up with you through email. But if you could, in the meantime, because Charlie Castillo ended the interactive process with me, and I'm asking to restart the interactive process so that I can get a schedule for the upcoming academic year, which is reasonably accommodated. But since Charlie Castillo was not able to help me, the suggestion is to go up to the next person. So I will follow up with you. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. All right. And Frank.
Hello, everyone again. I just want to comment on the list that was put out there. I want to talk about the custodian 2 eligibility list. So what kind of struck me odd, or just when I saw the list, I was a little blown away. If you notice, there's a lot of custodian 1s on the eligibility list, but I believe there's only like 4 on the 2. And why that strikes me is we have, I don't know how many we have, 40 custodian 1s in the district, maybe more. And I'm assuming none of them applied to be a custodian 2. And I actually had a conversation literally right before I got on this meeting with Raymond Young, who's over the custodians. And he was asking, and I'm kind of asking the same question. And my conclusion is, I think we all dropped the ball, all of us. Why don't the custodian 1s know how to apply for this position? He was asking that question, and I'm kind of looking at him like, well, because you didn't tell them to apply. I didn't tell them to apply. I have reached out to some of them, and I have over the years always talked to them and say, hey, this is what you need to do. But this round, honestly, I think I reached out to one person. So I think we're messing up here. I mean, we have like, I think 3 openings for custodian 2s right now sitting there, and we have 3 people on this list, and they're all outside people. That just, to me, is something's wrong there. So I just want to make that comment. Like, we need, when I say we, all of us, including myself, we need to figure out what we need to do to promote from within, especially when there's nobody even trying to get on this list. So I just want to make that comment.
Good point. Good point. Thank you. Denise, is this a, all right, actually, Commissioner Roeder, go ahead.
I wanted to follow up a little bit on Mr. Hernandez's comment, because I'm looking at on page 2 of our agenda, we have the examinations administered in the month of May, and it includes the custodian 2. And it would be interesting to understand what happened. It appears that 19 individuals actually applied for the custodian 2 and took the written portion of the exam. But then that dropped down to 7 who did the performance portion. And then I think Frank is right. It looked to me like maybe 5. Yeah, there were 5 that were on the list. So it went from 19 to 7 to 5. And I guess, the 19, I don't know if Frank will agree with this or not, the 19 who applied seems like a pretty decent number, if that's the case. But what happened to those 19 that they didn't make it to the performance portion? And maybe there's some mentoring that needs to occur, or, I'm just guessing as to what those reasons might be. And I don't know what they are.
Good point. Thank you for that. The truth is, I don't know, well, I'm not doing public comment, never mind. Denise, are you raising your hand for another comment, or is that an old hand raise?
It's for another comment.
Okay.
My comment is to follow up on Frank and Commissioner Roeder's issue with, and everybody else's issue with the eligibility list and taking the test. When I worked in HR years ago, there was something that the Personnel Commission put out to assist employees in taking tests. It gave like a variety of questions and answers, but something so that they could kind of prepare and know, what they would be asked and questioned on. I understand you don't want to give everybody answers. You don't want to let them know all of the questions, but for employees, they need to know what to do, how to do, and what you're looking for. Outside may know, but inside, a lot of us don't know. We have no idea of what you're looking for when we take these tests. So I'm making the suggestion that the PC, and I understand Aaron and Charlie and Brian, and I appreciate you guys. I know I'm not trying to put more work on you, but there has been before, years ago, I'm going to say over 10 years ago, a kind of booklet for IAs, for admin assistants, for custodians, for everybody. So there's a bunch of questions that they can look at and try to answer. And then you guys, the HR decides what actual questions they're going to present. It may not be the same questions that are in a booklet to assist, but it kind of gives them an idea so we can be prepared. So I'm just suggesting that that happens again, especially the way the work world is now, and with 19 original and only 7 making the oral, something needs to happen, and I'm hoping that will happen.
Thank you. Thank you. And Frank, I guess you've got your hand up again for a second item.
Yeah, honestly, I was looking at that list right before I came on here, and I was talking to Raymond at the same time. And I didn't even notice it was 19 people applied originally. So that brings another question. Actually, I got a question and a comment. If 19 people applied, how many of those were promotional? And I don't know the answer. I'm asking, and I think we need to look at that. And so my comment, I'm trying to figure out how to say this, because no matter what I say, it's not going to be good. But I'm just going to say it. As far as I know, unless it's changed, I know the 1s is a physical test, and I believe the 2s are also a physical test. It's not a written test. Does Aaron or Charlie know for a fact that that's true? And the reason why I'm saying that is my understanding is this people, I'll try to say it that way. I'm being delicate here. There are people who are giving that test, and people, it's not a written test. They look, they evaluate on however they do it. I'll stay with that. The variables are there. There's a lot of variables when that test is how they scored, or it could be. There could be a lot of variables. So maybe we need to look into that. Who's giving a test and how it's being done, and who's supervising that could also be another issue. Because 19 people, and you're down to 5, either, I don't know, if they're promotional, I would think that you would have a higher percentage, higher people passing that test. And if they're not, then I think there's something wrong in how it's being presented, the test status. That's it. Thanks.
All right, thank you. I appreciate the perspectives on all of that, and that's something that we as commissioners will take back and try to understand a little better. What if we have fall off, why we have fall off. I know there are often is fall off. People take the written and then decide they're not as interested in it as they used to be. But I think it's also worth trying to understand if there are other dynamics. Commissioner Roeder, go ahead.
Well, again, Frank, to your point, and you may be much more, in fact, I'm sure you are, way more knowledgeable about the exams and how they're administered and all of that. But I'm just looking at sort of this chart, and the chart says that 19 people took it's under a column that says written. So I'm assuming it was in fact written. But then, and there is no oral, but then there is a performance, which I think is exactly the test you were referring to. And there it's 7 people took the performance. And out of those 7, 5 made it onto the list. So in terms of the performance portion of the examination, it sort of appears that, a pretty good proportion made it onto the list from those who took the performance. But unless, and Brian or Aaron would know the answer to this, unless it isn't actually a written test, even though it's under a column that says written, then I don't really know. But it seems like Denise's point is extremely well taken, that if in fact it is a written test, then it appears that people, well, basically 12 people failed that written portion. Now, if it's not written, then all bets are off, but.
Can I comment? The custodian 1 test is for, as long as I can remember, in maybe 5 years or so, 6 years, when Greg was the manager, the custodian 1 was both were a performance test, meaning that you went in there and you performed. There was the reasons behind that, and I believe in good reasons for doing that. So I'm not knocking the test itself. I'm just saying that how we score it might be, you know, it's a judgment call, right? It's not a written test where you just say, oh, it's A, B, and C, and this has to be A. For that many people not to go from the first to the second. And again, I'm asking the question. I'm not sure either. I believe on the custodian 2, it could be a performance test too, but I'm not sure. Custodian 1, as far as I know, it's always been a performance test for like the last 5 years. But I'm not sure about custodian 2. I would think Aaron would know.
Oh, sorry, Heidi.
I had to chew out someone here at home to be quiet. Okay, I didn't have anything. I just wanted to be unmuted. Anybody else have comments? Charlie wants, all right. So he needs to be unmuted also.
I think what I can say is I think that we have to be just a little careful about this conversation, because but I heard everything you had to say, Frank, and I think that we can go back and have a discussion offline with you on some solutions. But you know, we have to be careful about
That's fine.
Who's applied, and I'm feeling a little.
I don't know who applied and who hasn't.
No, I know, but
I'm just looking at the numbers like everybody else.
No, I understand, and I think your point is very well taken, but I'm not always tremendously happy about talking about the exam, you know, in this setting. But I heard what you said. We should definitely have a conversation. I do know that some of the people just dropped out and things of you know, and I know there was one promotional, I think, you know, so I can give you more details, but I don't know that we should take the conversation further. But I hear you, and we should talk.
All right, thank you. So folks, it's 6:59 and we're kind of at the end of our 15-minute period. So Denise, I'll ask that you be the last commenter and that you keep it brief, please.
Yes, I just want to say that the way people took tests 2 years ago before the pandemic, what they knew and how they did things is different now. So I'm sure that may have some kind of bearing on the way tests are being prepared and handed out for people to do. So we got to keep in mind that what people know may have been from 2 years ago compared to what is happening now. So there needs to be some kind of update or something that employees and even outside people can get, because things have changed and everybody knows that. They're not sure how, what, or where. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Making a note. All right, I think we've had a good, robust public comment, and thank you. I appreciate the comments. Item 11 are our next meetings. On Wednesday, June 15th, although earlier in the meeting, we referred to the fact that the meeting was between 9 and noon, we're actually going to reschedule the meeting to be between 2 and 5 p.m. on that day. And that's the meeting where we go over our next phase of the PC rules and eligibility lists. So hopefully that time maybe will work for more people. And then we have our regular meeting on July 7th, and that'll be at 4:30 p.m. And our own Tim Zenner Davis is going to anchor that as chair. I'll be traveling. So with that, we're on item 12. We'll declare victory and adjourn at 7:01 p.m. Have a great evening, everyone, and hope to see you in a couple weeks at the June meeting.